So far in this little shootout series, I've compared a 1950s Formula 1 car to the ones that run today, and last time out I ran the absolutely epic Ford GT against the more recent Porsche 919 to celebrate the 55th anniversary of Ford's first ever win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. But one thing that was mentioned, and something that I've never really considered to be honest, is the difference between a car from today and a car from that same series when it was at the height of its powers. In Formula 1 we get that comparison because all the data is so easily to hand. You only have to look at the lap records now to see that very few records, if any, are still held by the cars of the iconic V10 era. And of the current calendar, only Monza, Albert Park and Shanghai have records still set by a car with a V10 engine. At Monza, that record is held by Rubens Barrichello. The other two are by Michael Schumacher. Alain Prost still has the record at Zandvoort, but that's on the pre-Banky Boy layout that should have been on the calendar last year. And while 2004 era F1 cars are considered the holy grail and the sport at the peak of its powers, there are other series that have had their golden era. Endurance racing had Group C, rallying had Group B, and touring cars? They had Super Touring. I know I've talked about this series a lot, but I have to assume that everybody is brand new. So the BTCC in the late 90s was considered to be peak touring cars. Of the 30 or so cars on the grid, 20 of those were fully paid up works drivers. Some of those drivers had come over from Germany and Australia, DTM V8 Supercars or Australian Touring Car Championship as was. As many fans were going through the gates at places like Brands Hatch and Alton Park as were going into some football league grounds, and the on-track action was a joy to behold as well. In 1998 and 1999, the BTCC ruled the world for saloon car racing. And then it all came to an end, and it was all down to one thing: money. Ford, Nissan and Renault were spending £5 million per car for a season, and these were just the figures that the drivers, the authorities and the press knew about. Ford had Craig Baird and Will Hoy. These names might not mean anything to you, but they were established names in touring cars. 350 grand would have been the minimum wage for them for a season. In 1998, Nigel Mansell did 3 rounds for Ford. Now, it's only 3 rounds, but Nigel Mansell doesn't work for nothing. No one knows how much Nigel got for those 3 rounds, but it must have been well into 6 figures. Then you've got to figure in hospitality, mechanics, spare parts, and in Ford's case, spending 150 grand on figuring out where to glue the windscreen wiper to get maximum aero in qualifying. Renault had a mass damper and trick rear suspension. Other trick suspensions and trick rear wings were being run, and there were qualifying engines good for 40 miles or so, and then they get lobbed in the bin. For a comparison, Eddie Jordan spent £10 million just 7 years earlier in Formula 1, and that was competitive enough for 5th in the championship. 10 million quid would have probably got them on the grid in the 1998 Formula 1 season. They'd only just qualified, but it would probably be enough. Basically, a national touring car competition was spending F1 money. It just was not sustainable. Super Touring died at the end of 1999, and after some messing around with the rules over the next few years, the BTCC arrived at NGTC, or Next Generation Touring Car, that came in at the start of the 2010s. Unlike in Australia and Germany, the current BTCC cars still resemble what can be bought at any dealer showroom in the UK, and while they're mostly hatchbacks now, the Astra is still an Astra, the Civic is a Civic, the Mercedes A-Class is a Mercedes A-Class, and so on. But while those icons of the late 90s are now old enough to buy a beer in America, the actual way these cars are built in terms of the regulations isn't that different. They both have a 2-litre engine, although the NGTC one is turbocharged. They both have a 6-speed lever sequential gearbox, and they are both for the most part front-wheel drive. Only the BMW 330i and Infiniti Q50 are rear-wheel drive in 2021. Previously, the BMW 125i and Subaru Levorg were powered from the rear. And they are both made to closely resemble the car you can buy yourself at any manufacturer dealer. The differences come in how much power they pump out. They both have over 300 horsepower. The Volvo S40 that won in 1998 had around 320 horsepower, but the modern cars have 350 upwards. Some claims are 360, others 380 to 385. The other big difference is cost, as we've already talked about. A complete car in 2020 minus the engine is around 200 grand, with engines being around 25 grand a throw for one supplied by Toka. That's up on the 100,000 that Toka initially wanted the cost to be, but still, it's a lot less than 10 million. And I guess we can throw manufacturer versus privateer into the mix as well. Aside from the BMWs run by West Surrey Racing, the Ford Focus is run by MB Motorsport and Photon Group, and Toyota Gazoo UK, the other teams receive no manufacturer support whatsoever. Team Dynamics used to, but 2020 was their last with Honda support. They run the Civics just by themselves now. So with some history out of the way to introduce these cars to those who might not have ever seen them before, let's get them on a track and look at the performance difference. This shootout will be done slightly differently than before, as a 2020 F1 car is far superior to one from the 50s and a LMP1 so much faster than a Ford GT. I'll be driving both cars individually around a track instead of going 1v1, because on this occasion the newer car isn't just going to fly off into the distance. So the rules for this one are pretty simple: 5 laps at Croft, so outlap and 4 time laps in both the Super Tourer and the NGTC. Both cars will be front wheel drive, so no use of the Subaru Levorg in the modern car, and I'll actually do some setup work to get as much performance as I can out of the cars. And this episode of the shootout stuff will actually be in R-Factor 2 rather than Assetto Corsa, because the front wheel drive experience is just better for me in R-Factor 2. That's just my own personal opinion. So let's go and destroy some front tyres. Okay, so here we are in the Super Tourer at Croft. I'm in John Cleland's Vauxhall Vectra. Yes, I'm going for first, says Cleland. And like I say, I'm just going to go out and do 5 time laps around here just to see what the car can do, and then we'll take the fastest one and then jump into the next generation touring car. I'm probably going to drive the Ford Focus for that one because I just like driving the Ford. I like my fast Fords. So let's get this melon farmer fired up. I'm in first. What a noise. Hit limiter off. Let's go. As you can see, I've got my tyre temps up. Show you the tyre wear. It's just to show you what driving a front wheel drive is like. So when I come through like Clairvaux and Surtees, I think this corner is, might be Hawthorns, it just shows you how much wear has been put on the tyres, how much heat has been sent into the tyres, because the front wheels are doing all the driving here. The rear wheels are just along for banter here. Clark S's. This car has a lot of aero grip. It's got a lot of grip in general. It feels very light in terms of being able to lob it into a corner. But you still got that 2 litre naturally aspirated engine, just making all the noise. That growl it makes at the lower revs and the final hairpin. It's so difficult, this. I really want triple screens just for that hairpin. Alright, let's put some times on the board. Got to be smoother with your inputs. I think that's why a lot of people don't like front wheel drives, because they can't do this with it. It's very smooth inputs. You can see the tyres at the front. Just taking all the heat, all the stress. And this has got to be the best track in the UK. .22.6, nice. about 100 different lines you can take through this little section, and all of them are wrong for me. Still nearly a quarter of a second up. I should have really put the Thrustmaster shifter on for this as well. Just a pure touring car experience. I'm also using my Ferrari Formula 1 rim, so that's going to knacker the immersion slightly. In TC UK, these two corners are absolute pig's ear in the BMW, the rear-wheel drive BMW, because of that short wheelbase, just wanted to drift. Horrible car. There we go. There we go. .122.1. I also think that this Super Touring mod might be a bit too quick. I'm not sure. It's so difficult to find the lap times from that era. So I'll do the times in both cars, but I think we need to take the times in this one with a little pinch of salt. Also got to factor in that I might be better in one car and bad in another. But you know, this series is just to have fun. There's nothing super serious in terms of the science or anything like that. There we go, just lost a chunk of time through being a bit too greedy with the throttle. Ooh, found 1.001 seconds on that lap. But the more you spend in this car, the quicker you're going to go. There's that impression that these cars of this era were absolute aminals. I said aminals, didn't I? Thanks, Jeremy. Can I get an invite to the Mushroom Cup next season if there is one? I love this thing. It's actually very, very forgiving to drive. I don't know if the real ones were. And there's that sound in the background. It's like the God of War gargling with nails. I've gone and found another second here. Jesus. And the tyres are still, but in almost mint condition. Alright. So there's probably more time to find in that, but I'll call out there because that's a crap lap. I've also completed 5 laps, even though I only did 4 time laps, but a 120.2. Again, pinch of salt with this from doing the practice runs. I'm still going to record the footage anyway, because BTCC cars are just such a laugh to drive. But yeah, 120.2. I did read somewhere that the actual pole time was a 122 at Croft. So again, pinch of salt. So we'll subtract 2 seconds off that time, I think, and use that. Probably safest. So let's jump in the more modern car, see what the difference is between the two. Okay, so welcome back to Croft. Now in the NGTC car, this is the Ford Focus, and it's the same deal as before. Go out 4 time laps. and see what it'll do, and then compare the tyre wear, compare the handling, and obviously the lap times as well. So let's pop it back into neutral, get the thing started up once more. Slightly different noise, turbocharged, going to sound a bit quieter, doesn't have that same roar that the Vauxhall did, but that's what we're dealing with here today. But here we go. Once again, front wheel drive. So very careful coming out of tight corners, because if you try to mash the power coming out of a slow corner in this, you'll just understeer. Obviously, if you're doing a rear wheel drive, you'll oversteer. I just prefer driving rear wheel drive cars. I am starting to have more fun in these though. I've sort of understood them a bit more now. Set the brake balance back a bit. Bit more initial turning. Ooh. Okay, lift off oversteer. Where's that wash on power I was on about? Feels immediately like it's going to be a lot harder to get the grasp of compared to the old one. Right, first sun lap, here we go. Yeah, screw you two cone. Yeah, car just wants to wash. It's got that responsive initial turning, but after that just wants to wash away. Now, this could be due to weight. Modern cars, much bigger compared to... Go on. Compared to the cars of yesteryear. You look at an old Sierra, compare it to the Mondeo. Mondeo is massive in comparison. The current Fiesta is the size of a first generation Focus now. And the Fiesta was considered the smaller car. Yeah, it is weird jumping straight from one car into another. .125, that's not a good start. Yeah, I don't think Tom Ingram actually drives a front-wheel drive touring car like that, but okay. It's nice to be driving a car with the steering wheel on the correct side as well. Okay, much better to tower this time. There should be some gains through this middle sector. Kick of oversteer. Car has gone full Tom Ingram on me. Probably lost a couple of tenths doing that. Tyres are getting absolutely shredded as well.
esports. Gains. Lost time at the hairpin. Bother. Still at 124.8. Last lap. I think most of my performance has gone. Bono, please. Saying that, Lewis Hamilton's brother does drive in this series with cerebral palsy, so fair play to him. More esports line. Got too greedy with the power. Okay. Black and neutral and just glide on round. So 24.3 versus whatever the other time was. I think it was like a 21 or something like that. I've forgotten already. I probably should have written it down, but I'll pop it on the screen. So yeah, back to showroom and try and work all this out.
So I managed to find out some information on a subreddit for the BTCC, and they actually confirmed that the current cars are indeed a few seconds slower than the glory years of Super Touring, and it's down to a few things. Number one, the aero is more tightly controlled and teams aren't then lobbing money at the aero to go faster. Number two, the cars are bigger and heavier than their 90s counterparts. You take the old Sierra, match it to the modern Mondeo. One is much bigger than the other. The Vauxhall was much flatter in the corners, while the newer cars want to understeer off if you're even a kilometre too quick. And number three, the tyres are designed to degrade at a time loss of around 8/10 over the course of the race, while the 1998 cars had top of the line Michelins and had to also do a compulsory stop in the feature race, so they could absolutely hammer them. And number four, yes, the NGTC has more power, but that extra weight it has to lug around is way too much to get the most out of it. The current cars also carry success ballast into each race with the exception of round 1 race 1, which adds to the slower pace. So I've kept you around for far too long, if you're still here after almost 22.5 minutes of talking and driving. So if you are still here and enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more like this, obviously hit subscribe to get all the latest. Big thanks as always go out to the patrons of the channel via Patreon. If you wish to join them or just join in the Discord stuff, I'll leave all the links you need in the description box for you. So that's it from me. I've been AdmiralLaWind. Have a great day wherever you are in the world, and I'll see you all next time for another video. So until then, goodbye.